Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Dr. John McClain, and continuing in this series on short answers to tough questions. This one deals with, did Judas have a choice not to betray Jesus? If God is all-powerful and all-knowing, and if it was predestined that Jesus would die on the cross, and it was predicted in the Old Testament that he would be betrayed, did Judas have a choice? Or was he elected or predestined to do it? Well, Matthew 26:47-50 says this: while he, Jesus, was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, came up, accompanied by a large crowd with swords and clubs, who came from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now, he who was betraying him, that is Judas, gave them, the accompanying priests and soldiers, a sign. The reason is, this was in the absolute pitch blackness of night. And there's no surprise to Jesus that they were coming, the Mount of Olives being more than 1,000 feet above the Temple Mount, and the long walk that Judas would have had with the priests and the soldiers down through the Tyropean Valley, and then up along the Kidron Valley, and then up to the Garden of Gethsemane with their torches and everything. There would have been no doubt that Jesus knew they were coming. And in fact, a little hop, skip, and jump, if I could say it that way, Jesus would have been off the backside of the Mount of Olives and could have escaped into the desert, where David was able to hide with all of his soldiers from Saul for a long, long time. But Jesus came to seek and to save and to suffer and to die on the cross and be resurrected. So they needed a sign. And of course, the sign of the kiss was the sign of a friend greeting, but it was also one in which it would allow Judas to get close to Jesus and to be able to show the others the sign. In fact, even when he does it, they don't fully get it. And Jesus knows that Judas is going to betray him. He announces it at the Last Supper, or the Passover meal. He tells Judas to go on and get it done. He gives him the sop. So Jesus knows everything that's going on. So whomever I kiss, he is the one, sees him. Immediately Judas went up to Jesus and said, "Hail, Rabbi," and kissed him, trying to deceive those disciples around him. And Jesus said to him, "Friend." Jesus reached out to Judas, even in the midst of betrayal. "Friend, do what you have come for." Then they came and laid their hands on Jesus and seized him. Now in Matthew 27:3-5, it says, "Then when Judas, who had betrayed him," Jesus, "saw that he had been condemned," and I think that's referring to Jesus, "he felt remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders." Now, this was not all the money that Judas had taken. He'd been pilfering from the gifts that had come to Jesus and the disciples to support them. It appears that in order to hide that pilfering, he had bought land previously, choice real estate land in order to maybe help hide it. That's my conjecture. But he says, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. Here's a hostile witness acknowledging that Jesus was innocent. But they said, what is this to us? See to that yourself. See to whatever you want to do with the money. But he threw the money and the pieces of silver into the temple sanctuary, departed, and he went out and hanged himself, committed suicide. Judas did this out of greed. He did this out of his own free will. Jesus knew it was going to happen. Jesus knew Judas would be the one who would do it. But Jesus continued to extend to him friendship, a very strong word of compassion and love and relationship. And Jesus accepted God's will and let it go down. This is one of many, many passages where we see the sovereign will of God accomplishing his purposes and incorporating the sinful will of humanity. God didn't cause Judas to do this, but he was in control. And Judas sinned, and it says he had remorse, a remorse enough that he went out and committed suicide. He acknowledged his sin, but I doubt that we will see him in heaven in eternity.